Richard Dufour was a well-respected educator, having had a career spanning over the course of 40 years. While in this field, he served as a teacher, principal, and superintendent. Through his work in writing, Dufour was a leading voice in the movement to improve schools through professional learning communities, in which teachers come together to analyze and improve their classroom practice. Over the course of his career, he was the author of numerous books, including the best-selling Professional Learning Communities at Work, Learning by Doing, and Raising the Bar and Closing the Gap, Whatever It Takes. Some of the additional accomplishments Dufour had was the honor of being named one of the top 100 school administrators in North America by Executive Educator magazine, presented with the Distinguished Scholar Practitioner Award from the University of Illinois, and was the 2004 recipient of the National Staff Development Council's Distinguished Service Award. PLC stands for Professional Learning Community, which is an ongoing process in which educators work collaboratively in recurring cycles of collective inquiry and action research to achieve better results for the students they serve.
Today, we will talk about teaching and learning in a professional learning community. In the Fond du Lac School District, teachers and administrators work together as a professional learning community, or PLC, to serve the students of our community. The mission of the Fond du Lac School District, in partnership with the family and the community, is to promote high achievement and foster the continuous growth of the whole child, so that each becomes a creative, contributing citizen in a global society by providing personalized learning opportunities in a safe, nurturing environment. That's a powerful statement, but what does it mean? It means that every adult in our schools commits to taking each student where he or she begins and moving him or her toward the achievement of grade level expectations or better, and the eventual goal of graduating high school prepared for his or her desired future. How do we achieve this goal? We invest in the professional learning community model. A professional learning community is a collaboration of teachers, administrators, parents, and students who work together to seek out best practices, test them in the classroom, continuously improve processes, and focus on results. Why is this collaboration critical to success? Collaboratively, members of a learning community relentlessly question the status quo, seek new methods of teaching and learning, test the results, and then reflect on the results. What work do professional learning communities engage in to improve teaching and learning? Rick Dufour has outlined 4 key questions that PLCs answer together. Question 1. What do we want students to know and be able to do? When answering question 1, teams must begin by examining their standards. In Fond du Lac, our teachers work together to identify the power standards for each course and grade level. Power standards define the key things that all students must know and be able to do by the end of the year or course. After teams have identified their power standards, they engage in a process for unwrapping their standards. The primary goal in the unwrapping process is to identify the smaller learning targets that exist within the standard. These targets are used to plan daily instruction and define proficiency. The final step that teams undertake as part of answering question 1 is to create proficiency scales. A proficiency scale organizes the learning targets found within the standard into performance levels. The proficiency scale defines clearly the expectations for student learning. The proficiency scale is not only a key part of planning for instruction, but it is also valuable in providing specific feedback to students on how they can improve their learning. The second question that a PLC answers is, how will we know that students have learned what we set out to teach them? Question 2 causes teams to determine how they will assess student learning. Using the proficiency scales written for each power standard, teacher teams develop their assessments. Assessments, both formative and summative, are leveled, meaning questions are included that allow students to demonstrate their learning at multiple levels. All assessments clearly define the specific standard or standards being assessed, so that students and families know what is being assessed. Students are given multiple opportunities to demonstrate that they have reached a level 3 learning for the standard. If students or the teacher request a reassessment, the teacher and the student work together to determine what steps the student will take to improve his or her learning prior to reassessing, including reteaching, additional practice, etc. The third question a PLC answers is, what will we do if students don't learn what we set out to teach them? This question requires teams to engage in data analysis. After administering an assessment, formative or summative, teams meet to analyze the student data and information gathered. Teams analyze group trends within the data to determine if large group reteaching might be needed. Teams also analyze individual student trends to determine if reteaching or intervention might be required. If the team determines reteaching or intervention is required for one, some, or all students, collaboratively the team plans for this reteaching or intervention. The team determines who will deliver the reteaching or intervention and for which students. The team plans what the reteaching or intervention might include. After the reteaching or intervention has occurred and a new assessment has been administered, the team meets again to analyze the data to see if their goal has been met. Question a PLC answers is, what will we do if students already know what we are planning to teach them? Much like question 3, this question requires data analysis and team planning. When analyzing student assessment data, it may become clear that some students have already shown proficiency on the standard or learning target being taught. If this is the case, the team determines how the differentiation needs of those students will be met. This could happen through planning ahead for these needs through the use of universal design for learning, and it could also happen through enrichment offerings during the grade levels intervention and enrichment block. Professionals in a learning organization recognize that no matter how well-intentioned the efforts, the only valid judgment of improvement is observable and measurable results. PLC teams measure their impact through the use of SMART goals, which are monitored regularly. In a professional learning community, all members of the professional learning community work together to meet the needs of all students.
Muted using Powtoon.
For those who question why we should have professional learning communities, I think the answer is relatively simple. There's never been greater consensus about what it's going to require of educators in order to improve student learning in all of their schools. Virtually all of the leading educational researchers in North America and all of our professional organizations have agreed that our best hope for improving schools is to focus on developing the capacity of the people within the schools. There's just been an international study done by the McKinsey Group by Sir Michael Barber where they looked at the highest performing school systems in all of the world. And they said that the one thing that those systems had in common was an understanding that a system can only be as good as the people within it. And so in those high-performing systems, there was a conscious effort made to develop the capacity of those people, to understand that the only way we're going to improve schools is by improving the quality of the instruction that students receive every single day through the collective efforts of their teachers and school leaders. So to those who had asked the question, why PLCs, I would ask, why not? What else is out there that has such universal consensus in terms of its power to make a difference in the lives of students? The biggest obstacles that are interfering with schools moving from traditional schools to professional learning communities aren't really a lack of resources or some of the other external factors that we might point to. The biggest obstacle is overcoming our own traditions in the mythology that persists in education, mythology that says things like the way to improve schools is by hiring heroic individual teachers who close their door and make a difference in the lives of their students and are sort of indifferent to what else is going on around the school. A mythology that says the real purpose of schooling is merely to give students the opportunity to learn rather to ensure that they learn. So there are some long-standing traditions in American education that we must confront, and we must overcome them if we are going to succeed in becoming professional learning communities and making a difference in the lives of our students. There are now over 150 different schools on the All Things PLC website, and every one of them represents a tremendous success story. It's hard to identify a single story that stands out. But if I had to pick one, I would probably go with the school district in Sanger, California, which is one of the first districts in California to go into program improvement and come under state sanctions. Led by the superintendent, Mark Johnson, who was recently named the National Superintendent of the Year by AASA, the district began to implement the PLC process district-wide. They adopted a mantra of no blaming the kids. What can we, the educators, do in order to create the conditions that will help our students learn at higher levels? There were certain things that were expected to happen in all of the schools. Teachers were expected to collaborate, to develop a guaranteed curriculum, to monitor student learning through common assessments, to have plans of intervention when students were struggling, and to have all of the educators throughout the system help one another learn in order to be more effective in whatever their respective responsibilities were, whether it was teaching or leading a building or leading the district. The results have been nothing short of phenomenal. It's one of the highest achieving districts in California in terms of the progress that it's made over the last 4 or 5 years. And Michael Fullen, who's looked at effective school systems all around the world, picked Sanger as one of 4 school systems in the world that he wanted to highlight in a video of successful district-wide implementation of school improvement. So there are many, many stories that warm our hearts and keep us inspired and motivated to continue doing our work. But Sanger is one that's particularly touching. They have over 80% poverty, 80% minority, and yet every year student achievement is improving in that district, in every school in the district. It's a wonderful story.
Richard DeFore used examples of schools that had issues with working in a professional learning community and the changes they made to better themselves. He talked about Boone's Mill Elementary and how the teachers there had complete freedom in choosing when their students went to specials or worked on subjects each day in the classroom. This made for an imbalanced community in the school because none of the teachers were on the same page. To improve their school community, the principal created a working schedule for everyone to follow so the school day could flow much easier. Prairie Star Middle School was also used as an example of a school that struggled with PLC. The teachers at Prairie Star rarely ever had any time to work as members of a team. The majority of planning was done individually and not reviewed by their principal or colleagues. The principal of the school changed the scheduling and worked with all of the faculty to create a period of time where the students will be supervised by other faculty members rather than the teachers, so the teachers could use this time to collaborate with one another, therefore bettering their professional learning community as a whole. An example of a high school Richard DeFore used was Stevenson High School. Like Prairie Star Middle School, Stevenson had very little time for teacher collaboration. To fix this, the principal decided to change the rules of study hall so the older students with good grades did not have to attend study hall, and the younger students had study hall in larger areas like the auditorium rather than smaller classrooms, so more students could be supervised by less faculty members. After these changes were made, it improved the school as a professional learning community by giving the teachers more time to collaborate and work with students one-on-one that needed it the most.
Through the use of professional learning communities, all examples of the schools DeFore mentioned has benefited tremendously. Teachers are able to make time to collaborate more effectively and plan ahead with greater clairvoyance on the development of their students. All students from all levels of education, whether elementary, middle, or high school, show great leaps and bounds in their learning potential, including those in minority groups and of those in different socioeconomic backgrounds. It is amazing what is capable once teachers have the resources to collaborate well together. With learning tools such as common formative assessments and a well-thought-through intervention program for at-risk students and set standards of competency, PLCs can thrive. And it all starts with teachers wanting to collaborate and come together as a team and put learning of their students first. DeFore believes collaboration is crucial for education, and through professional learning communities, we can better achieve a better educational society.